it's the way you want it or not, then you know that you're not alone.
Right, right,
Even when
right.
things are
But how
bad.
about if you, how about if you've you're in a dark place, not let's say emotionally, but spiritually. Let's say someone feels that they've like gone so far from God or from religion, and you feel, oh, do you feel there's a turning back, or is there a point where someone may say, oh, I'm so dark down in the dungeon, I've done so, I'm so far from where God wants me, I can never, I can never come out of this, I can never turn around, I'm just, this is where I am and that's it.
I guess that's possible, but I hope that that a person wouldn't get to that point.
I think many.
Do you feel people do? Some people do that, like, oh, I'm so far, I've done so many things, God's mad at me, I can't, it's not even worth it anymore,
I'm sure there are people like that.
Right.
I'm sure there's lots of people like that.
Exactly, right. So,
especially people who were formerly from,
right, right. But believe it or not, what we're going to learn in today's lesson is that there is always hope. Even if someone is in that place and so far and feel that they've totally disconnected and totally have no connection and feel that they can never get out, of that dark spiritual place, the answer through our Hanukkah lesson is yes, you can. Sorry for stealing that motto. Okay. Okay. So today, we're going to talk about Hanukkah and the basic story of Hanukkah. I think everyone here knows it, right? That it was in the 2nd century, and the Israel was controlled by the Seleucid Empire, otherwise known as the Syrian Greeks, and they made a lot of harsh decrees on the Jews there that they can't practice religion, and they had a huge army, right? And then the Maccabees formed, and they fought against the Syrian army and fought for their rights and fought to retake control of the Holy Temple. And they came in, and the menorah, they want to light the menorah. There was no oil because the Greeks messed up all the oil, and the oil lasted for 8 days, right? So that's the basic story. What's interesting is we do have different parts of the story from different sources. Not even particularly, from not all the sources are sources that are like, like books that we have today. But if you want to see where in a good Jewish source does it talk about the story of Hanukkah, it's in the Talmud, and that's text number 1. So let's read text number 1. Any volunteers?
I'll read.
Okay.
What is Hanukkah? On the 25th of Kislev, the days of Hanukkah are 8. One may not eulogize on them, and one may not fast on them. What is the reason? When the Greeks entered the temple, they defiled all the oils that were in the temple by touching them. And when the Hasmonean monarchy overcame them and emerged victorious over them, they searched and found only one cruse of oil with the seal of the high priest, undisturbed by the Greeks. There was only enough oil to light the menorah for 1 day. A miracle occurred, and they lit the menorah from it for 8 days. Oh, sorry, something just popped up here. Hold on. The next year, the sages instituted those days and made them holidays with the recitation of Hallel and special thanksgiving in prayer and blessings.
Okay, what's missing from this? What big part of the Hanukkah story and miracle is missing from this text?
Maccabees?
The whole fight, right? The whole war, the whole battle, right? The Maccabees fought, the Maccabees won the battle. Doesn't talk about that at all. Doesn't talk about, it does say the Hasmonean monarchy overcame and emerged victorious, but that just sounds more like it's like of the temple itself, of Beis HaMikdash itself, and not really of the actual war to fight off the Syrian Greeks. Yes, a big miracle. We'll discuss a little bit about it today. Yes, definitely. Definitely a big miracle. Definitely not an easy thing to do. So let's read text number 2. Rashi asks that question. You want to read that? Can you see the words on the screen, Andrea?
Yes.
Okay, if you want, you can read it.
The Thomas question, what is Hanukkah, means what miracle was it instituted to commemorate?
Okay, so when the Talmud's saying over the story of Hanukkah, it's not saying it over as a historical story. Like, hey, let me tell you guys what happened on Hanukkah. It was more as the Talmud is about law, Jewish law. So why do we celebrate Hanukkah? What's the halachic aspect of it? Why do we celebrate Hanukkah? And so the answer is, because of a big miracle. There was a big miracle, and that was that the oil lasted 8 days. So then we have a further question, and the further question would be, hey, and what about the story of the fighting and the battle? Right, a small little army fought this huge army. Why is that not part of the miracle? That sounds like a huge miracle. I mean, if you look at it from a historical perspective, let's say we didn't make a big deal about the oil lasting for 8 days, like no one will remember it. No one's anyway in the Beis HaMikdash when the high priest lights the menorah, other people don't particularly see it. It's in it's in the holy section where not anyone could just walk into. But oh wow, a small army won to overpower a huge army, that people hear about. So that sounds like the thing to like celebrate and recognize, hey, there was a small group of Jews that were not experienced fighters and they won this huge mighty army. And the part of the oil, okay, it's very possible that not everyone knew about it. So why is it that the Talmud doesn't say that we celebrate Hanukkah, the miracle of Hanukkah is because of the war, and only says it's because of the oil? Something, doesn't make sense over here. So let's read text number 3. Shelley, you want to do it?
Sure. Logically, it seems that the military victory of the many into the hands of the few, the strong into the hands of the weak, Be'al Hanisim, was the primary victory, and the miracle of the oil secondary to it. But Chanukah is observed on the 25th of Kislev, when the miracle of the oil occurred, and not on the 24th when the military victory took place. Why do we give primacy to the seemingly secondary miracle and relegate the seemingly primary miracle to secondary status?
Okay, so that's the question. So the oil, the miracle of oil was great, but but the war and the survival of the nation, that also sounds pretty, big. So why is the idea of the oil lasting 8 days take a bigger, cut in this? So let's find out. Okay. So there were actually 2 wars going on. 2 wars taking place, just like now, we have the war, the actual war in Israel, and then we have like the, media or the war of public opinion and stuff like that, right? So at this time, there were 2 wars taking place. There was the war of the ideological war of the Greeks fighting Jewish practice, right? The Greeks did not want the Jewish people to practice Judaism. And this is represented in the oil, because Judaism has lots of wisdoms and teachings and lots of things that people say, oh wow, that's that's brilliant. Oh, that sounds so more, that makes so much sense, that. But then there's lots of parts of Judaism that we do or we fulfill or that are taught that really is beyond logic and doesn't make any sense. And it's like, hey, why do we do this or why do we do that? We do it because Hashem told us, even though it kind of, maybe sounds weird or doesn't have like a something that we can really, we as humans can't really logically explain. So it's something that transcends intellect. Of course, today we have a lot of Hasidus that teaches us a lot of deeper meanings of things, but like, on the surface and what, people have learned, and what the basic reasoning for things, some things don't make any sense, like keeping kosher. There's no logic to So this is the first, so there was that war, the war that the Greeks were like, hey, why do you guys keep all these odd laws that, don't make any sense? Why are you doing all these like interesting stuff? And in Judaism, as many of you know, there are different types of mitzvahs. We're reading text number 4a from Maimonides from the Rambam, that there's laws that are logical, mishpatim, like civil laws, and then there's hukim, statutes, which don't particularly have a specific reason. Text 4a. Yeah.
The Torah states, and you shall guard all my decrees, the shukim,
Hukim.
hukim,
Hukim.
and all my judgmentals, mishpatim, and perform them. Our sages commented, this adjures us to guard and perform both the chachim and hukim and the mishpatim. The meaning of performing is well known, that one should observe the chukim. Guarding means to treat them with caution and not think that they are any less than the mishpatim. Mishpatim are those mitzvot whose motivating rationale is openly revealed and the benefits of their observance in their world is known, like the prohibitions against robbery and bloodshed and the commandment to honor one's parents. The chukim are the mitzvot whose motivating rationales are not known. Our sages said, I ordained decrees, the chukim, and you have no license to question them.
Okay. So we basically relinquish our attempt to understand, and we just submit to Hashem's will. We know Hashem wants us to do this, and it's not easy for people to do that, right? To just do something because without understanding it. But it's a type of service to Hashem. How many times have we heard people like ridicule or make fun of certain Jewish traditions that kind of are silly? There's actually a song. I was going to find it for the class, but I forgot to look it up. It was this guy, Country Yessie. He's really funny, old, back from like when I was young. I think he's still around, but I don't know if he still sings. And he has all these like parodies. So he has a song, cause I'm a Jew, I do that too. Yeah. I know it's a famous country song, but he made it into a Jewish song. Like once a year we wave a chicken around our head and something like all these other kind of like funny things. Yeah. And I forgot all the other ones. One, and we wear sneakers with our suits. I don't know. It has like a whole bunch of male lines at the end of the class. Anyway, so yes, there are certain things that we do that don't seem to have a rationale, but we do them because Hashem wants us to do them. And this is what the Greeks did not like. But let's continue. Maimonides 4b. Eileen, you want to read it?
Yeah.
Thanks.
A person's natural inclination confronts them concerning the chukim and the nations of the world, challenge them as well. For example, the prohibition of the meat of a pig, milk and meat, the calf whose neck is broken, and the red heifer, and the goat sent to Azazel. To what degree did King David suffer because of the heretics and the idolaters who would issue challenges concerning the decrees? As long as they would pursue him with false retorts, that they would arrange according to humanity's limited knowledge, he would increase his clinging to the Torah. As the verse states, willful transgressors have stacked falsehoods against me, but I guard your precepts with a full heart.
Okay. So the Greeks, they didn't they weren't looking to annihilate us. They weren't looking to kill us out like Haman did or like Amalek once, but they just didn't like this irrational part of Judaism. And they looked at it like, hey, we like the Jewish culture. We like eating lox and bagels on Sunday morning, but what's this about not being able to mix your milk and meat? What's this about having to have a circumcision on an 8-day-old, baby? What, you know, doesn't make any sense to me. So that is what they were trying to cut out from the Jewish people. Text number 5. Shelley, are you okay to read?
Sure. The Greeks' war was a spiritual one. They did not wish to physically harm the Jews. Rather, their primary objective was to make them forget that the Torah is God's Torah and the mitzvot are his will, meaning they did not have a problem with the Torah insofar as it is an intellectual exercise. To be sure, the Greeks were highly sophisticated people and recognized the brilliance of the Torah. However, they opposed the notion that it was God's Torah, a holy Torah. Against this, they battled.
Okay, so they battle against the holiness of things, the spirituality side of things. So they didn't come to make war, right? Actually, when they first came, they were trying to lure the Jewish people into their style, their way of life. They want to kind of assimilate them. So much today in America, I mean, people may not do it maliciously today. You know, you're still free to practice Judaism, but the allure of, oh, you know, join us at the, you know, Olympic gym, join us for, what's that thing called, you know, for all the different like sports, you know, let's you know, try to work on our body, you know, who cares about our soul type of thing. So they tried to allure the Jewish people with a good life of the Greek. And it was only when the Jews would not give up their so-called old-fashioned or irrational ideas, you know, mitzvahs, rituals, whatever it is, that's when it got nasty. That's when it said, hey, you're doing all that stuff. No, that doesn't make any sense. That's old, you know, now that we're the Syrian Greeks were here, you only can do things that, you know, have a rationale, or you can explain to us. Otherwise, don't keep those mitzvahs. And that's why they decreed they did not allow people to the Jewish people to follow certain laws that did not have logical explanations to. And that's where the battle began. It was a battle against the Jewish spirituality, the Jewish holiness, and not specifically about the Jewish people themselves, the actual people. So let's read text number 6. You want to read it?
Mm-hmm. The Jews at this time were not subjugated to a ruler who wanted to annihilate them, like they were in the times of Haman. Rather, the Greeks, led by the ruler
Antiochus,
only wanted the Jews' subservience and devotion to their culture and faith system, just like any conquering nation subjugates those they vanquish to their benefits, beliefs, and faith. If the Jew would have accepted the Greeks' sovereignty, adopted their beliefs, and agreed to pay them taxes, the Greeks would not have asked for more.
Okay, so what really drove the Greeks nuts was the laws of purity and impurity. How could there be a space that's sacred? How could there be a space that's considered pure? How could you have a pure, you know, uncontaminated place, you know, in a spiritual sense? That totally did not make any sense to them. So what their plan when they entered the Beis HaMikdash, they liked the beauty of the Beis HaMikdash. They liked the art, they liked the gold and all the beautiful stuff, but they did not like the idea that it was a holy place, that only certain people were allowed to go in certain places in the Beis HaMikdash, and that the oil that they had had a special seal, and if they broke that seal, that it wouldn't be able to be used for the lighting of the menorah. That oil still worked. There was no difference once you open the seal or before you open the seal. That was still, you know, oil that actually can light, you know, you can light. So that didn't make sense to them. Why would this oil be considered pure, and why once I open it is it impure? So that's what they destroyed in the Beis HaMikdash. They didn't like spill out all the oil or just get rid of it all. They just opened up the bottles that they weren't sealed anymore. And that, okay, I'm not gonna jump ahead of myself, sorry. Andrew, you want to do text number 7?
Okay. Um, the Greeks gathered against me in the days of the Hasmoneans. Let me see.
Hasmoneans.
Hasmoneans.
Hashmonaim. Yeah.
They broke down the walls of the towers and defiled all the oils.
That's one of the songs that we sing for Hanukkah. So they defiled the oil. They and we mentioned this. What's interesting is we mentioned this in the V'al HaNisim prayer. As we said, they purposely did this to the oil to destroy the purity and say, hey, why is this oil not good? So the menorah wasn't just a nice piece of artwork or a nice chandelier that everyone could come and say, oh, wow, what a beautiful piece, thing you have over here. How much light does it give? Wonderful. That's not what the menorah was about, right? But it was a beacon of spiritual light. And it represented Hashem's light and energy in the world. And that is like the whole idea of the oil being lit and lasting and staying, and lasting for 8 days, kind of was like the story of Hashem and the Jewish people doing what Hashem wants them to do. So let's read text number 8. Want to read it? It's really short. No, because you're in person.
The
I'll read it.
as a testimony to humankind that the divine presence rests among Israel.
Okay, so this is what the Greeks were really originally trying to stop. The Maccabees, they did something that was irrational. They're the small army. They say, hey, we're going to fight the Greeks. We're going to go fight against them. Now, the Greeks was a huge, strong army, and it didn't make any sense. Just like the Jewish people do mitzvahs that don't make any sense and are irrational, the Maccabees make this irrational decision to try and fight off the Syrian Greeks. And they went above and beyond what was natural, what was normal, and stood up, fought with them, and won. And it wasn't about the war, but what they were fighting for, what they were winning. So what they won was the right to shine Hashem's oil, the right for there to be the spirituality, the spirit of the Judaism. So that's what the menorah symbolizes, the victory of keeping the spiritual part of our people. So the religious side, the godly side, the divine side of who we are, not just the lox and bagels. Text number 9, Shelley.
The Greeks wanted to make the Jews forget about the divine aspect of the Torah. They did not want to harm them physically. Therefore, they deliberately contaminated the oil in the temple, for the oil represents the divine light of the Torah. Consequently, the miracle of the oil, which was the answer to the Greeks' primary scheme, is the primary miracle of Chanukah, and the military victory, the answer to the physical conflict that the Greeks never intended, is secondary to it.
Okay, so if the main miracle was the oil, does that mean the battle itself was insignificant, that we should have no recognition of it when we talk about the Talmudic reasoning why we celebrate Hanukkah? It's still a huge thing to have the victory, even though it was a result of the spiritual issue, but still was something big. Do we not have to be grateful for winning that war? Of course we have to be grateful. Okay, so yes, we do have to be grateful for winning the war, and the question is when and how. And where we mostly see the discussion about the miracle of the physical battle with the Greeks was in the V'al HaNisim prayer, which we say it in Shemona Esrei in the Amidah during Hanukkah, and we also say it in the Birchat HaMazon, the benching. Okay, and let's see what we read there. Text number 10. Eileen, can you do it?
Sure. You, in your abundant mercy, stood by them in their time of distress. You defended their cause. You judged their grievances. You avenged them. You delivered the mighty into the hands of the weak, and many of the hands of the few, the defiled people into the hands of the undefiled, the wicked into the hands of the righteous, and the insolent sinners into the hands of diligent students of your Torah. And you made for yourself a great and sanctified name in your world and for your people, Israel. You performed a great deliverance and redemption unto this very day.
Thank you. Okay, so see, we specifically say all the miracles of the battle in this prayer, in the Al Hanisim. But what's missing here? The miracle of the oil.
Right.
So why is it split? Why can't we have both together? One or the other. So the answer is because the war, as we said, we only fought this war as because of the theological disagreement that we had with the Greeks, or the Greeks had with us. So the winning of the battle caused a great spiritual victory, causing the oil to burn for 8 days. So by winning that war, it's like, wow, now we can practice Judaism how we want. Now we can do everything Hashem wants us to do. We won this great spiritual victory. And so then we went to light the menorah, and then we had this even bigger miracle because the Hashem's energy was so strong that we really went all the way. So since they're both so they both are very strong spiritual revelations, then we don't and because they're really just connected to one another, it's really so we don't want to diminish one over the other. So we keep one for one thing and one for the menorah lighting, as we commemorate the miracle of the oil, and that's the official reason why we celebrate Chanukah, or whatever one reason. And then the actual battle was only done because of the spiritual issues, and that we do through the prayers that we say on Chanukah. Let us read text number. Okay, text number 11. What are we up to? I lost track. I don't know. Did you read, Shelley?
Read, sure.
Okay.
When compared with the great spiritual revelation of Chanukah, which was expressed through the miracle of the oil, the physical military victory becomes insignificant. Therefore, when we wish to commemorate and offer thanks for the physical victory, we cannot simultaneously mention the miracle of the oil, because it would outshine the physical victory to the extent that it would become negligible. Therefore, we commemorate the two miracles at two different times. We commemorate the miracle of the oil by lighting the Chanukah candles, and we commemorate the military victory with the Ve'al HaNisim prayer.
Okay, so they're both great, and they have different significances, and so we commemorate them in different ways. So Chanukah, what's another name for Chanukah? What people say when they talk about it in English?
Festival of Lights.
Festival of Lights.
Oh,
Hanukkah is a festival of lights. It's all about the light. You know, when we talk about Judaism or God or something holy, we think of light, right? Hashem's light is in the world. We reveal more of Hashem's light when we do mitzvahs, right? So we think of, so light unto the nations. So Judaism is always kind of way connected to light, because light is more of a spiritual thing, right? Even though it's physical, it's, it's not like as tangible as, a table is or whatever something else is. So it's a great metaphor that we use when we want to talk about something that's spiritual, or specifically godly light, godly energy. God, we always refer to as light. When we're talking about good, about God's goodness, it's always about light. Let's read text number 12. Want to read it, Andrea?
Everything spiritual is compared to light, because the spiritual realm is entirely removed from physicality. Thus, everything that exists in the spiritual realm is analogous to light.
Okay, so if this is true of all the spiritual beings, like souls or angels or things like that, then it's especially true for Torah and mitzvahs. Because what is King Shlomo say, very famous line over here, text 13.
Okay.
I'll do
For a
two.
mitzvah is a lamp, and the Torah is light.
Right. So Torah and mitzvahs represent a lamp and a light. What's a lamp and a light? The menorah. So this is what Hanukkah is all about. The Greeks try to squish our menorah, our Torah and our lamp, and Torah and our mitzvahs, our light and our lamp. And we light the menorah. We say, no, look, we still have it. We still have our Torah. We still have our mitzvahs. We still have our menorah. Our spirit of Judaism is still here. You cannot squish that from us. And of course, when we light the menorah, physical light, that's we see the light, and that kind of makes us feel good. Wow, look what we're doing. We're bringing this light into the world, but at the same time, it's also bringing a great spiritual light into the world. So when we light the physical light of a menorah, or also of Shabbos candles, we are bringing a great spiritual light into the world. We maybe not see it, but it is there. So Judaism is a beacon of light, and Torah is an antidote for spiritual darkness. So that's why we say, someone should study Torah, even, as much as they can, even if they're not practicing, it's good to study Torah, even if you're not, because so quote unquote, practicing Jew, because teaching the Torah will shine light on your soul, and it helps you lift, right, and will shine your soul, and it will lift you from your darkness. So
Teaching the Torah or studying the Torah?
Studying Torah.
Mhm.
So when someone says, hey, if you're in the beginning of the class, we said, hey, if you are in this, someone's in a deep, dark place spiritually, and they feel like, oh my God, I've gone so far, I'm so bad, I can never get out of this. Think of it, it's just darkness, and you just need to turn on the light. If they study a little Torah or do a little mitzvah, it's like turning on a little match or turning on a little flashlight. And then it's a little bit, it's something to help them get out. It's not an end. They're not gone forever. They can always, just by doing a little bit of something, will always bring some light. Text 14, I'll let you read it too, because the other one's so short.
When one studies Torah,
Sorry. Okay, go for it. Yeah.
When one studies Torah, its light draws them to the right path.
Okay, so you can never be too far gone, because Judaism is light and will always overpower darkness. Just turn on the light by learning a little Torah and doing mitzvahs, and this will dissipate the dark. The Rebbe was very for teaching, very for reaching out to Jews in, hello Anna, to Jews in prison.
That's from Claire. Claire gave it to me for my birthday.
So the Rebbe was very, very into trying to reach Jews in very dark places, in prison. And so here's a letter the Rebbe actually wrote to Jewish people in prison in the year 1977. 15. Eileen, you want to read it?
Sure.
It's a long one.
Yeah, a second here. By the grace of God, 15th of Kislev, 5738, November 25th, 1977, Brooklyn, New York. To all Jewish detainees everywhere, God be with you. Greeting and blessing. In connection with the forthcoming days of Hanukkah, I extend to each and all of you prayerful wishes for a bright and inspiring Hanukkah, coupled with the fulfillment of your heart's desires for good in every respect. Hanukkah brings a meaningful message of encouragement in keeping with all of the festivals and commemorative days in our Jewish calendar, which are meant to be observed not just for the sake of remembrance, but also for the practical lessons they provide in our daily life. One of the practical teachings of Hanukkah is as follows. The special mitzvah pertaining to Hanukkah is, of course, the kindling of the Hanukkah lights, which must be lit after sunset, unlike the Shabbos candles, which must be lit before sunset, and unlike also the lights of the menorah that were kindled in the Beis HaMikdash even earlier in the day.
So the rest I'll have Anna continue because Anna just walked in to go some more.
The meaningful message that this emphasis on kindling the Hanukkah lights after sunset conveys is when a person finds themselves in a situation of after sunset, when the light of day has given way to gloom and darkness, as was the case in those ancient days under the oppressive Greek rule, one must not despair, God forbid. But on the contrary, it is necessary to fortify oneself with complete trust in God, the essence of goodness, and take heart in the firm belief that the darkness is only temporary, and it will soon be superseded by a bright light, which will be seen and felt all the more strongly through the supremacy of light over darkness, and by the intensity of the contrast. And this is the meaning of lighting the Hanukkah lights, and in a manner that calls for lighting an additional candle each successive day of Hanukkah, to plainly see for oneself and to demonstrate to others passing by in the street that light dispels darkness, and that even a little light dispels a great deal of darkness, how much more so a light that steadily grows in intensity. And if physical light has such quality and power, how much more so eternal spiritual light? What has been said above pertains to our Jewish people as a whole, as well as to each individual Jew, man or woman in particular. The conclusion that follows from it is that though our Jewish people is still in a state of galus, exile, and darkness covers the earth, a time when nations rage and people speak vain things, etc., there is no reason to get overly excited by it. We have only to strengthen our trust in God, the guardian of his people Israel, who neither slumbers nor sleeps, and be confident that he will protect his people wherever they be, and will bless them with hatzlacha, success in all things and in a growing measure, and that he will hasten the coming of our righteous Mashiach to bring us the true and complete geula, redemption, which is fast approaching. Similarly, in regard to each individual, those who find themselves in a state of personal galus, there is no cause for discouragement and despondency, God forbid. On the contrary, one must find increasing strength and complete trust in the Creator and Master of the universe that their personal deliverance from distress and confinement is on its speedy way. All the more so when this trust is expressed in a growing commitment to the fulfillment of God's will in the daily life and conduct in accordance with his Torah and mitzvot, of which the mitzvah of kindling the Chanukah lights is particularly significant in that it symbolizes the illumination of the soul, the lamp of God with the light of the Torah and mitzvot, for a mitzvah is a lamp and the Torah is light, illuminating it in an increasing measure from day to day to bring about the fulfillment of the prophecy. The people walking in darkness of the Galut will see a great light, the light of the Geula with blessing for Hatzalach and good tidings in all above.
Okay, thank you so much.
Amen.
So I just wanted to end with actually, I just was watching an interview with this guy who in prison found his Judaism. It's a whole long story. His name was Sean Balva. He actually wrote a book. You can look it up if you want to buy his book. But he like never had anything to do with Judaism in his life. Like his father was Israeli, his mother was Jewish, but he barely did, they didn't really do anything, and he just didn't feel any connection to his Judaism at all. And unfortunately, when he was in high school, he got too much involved in drugs and eventually ended up messing up his life and ended up in jail. And it was once in jail that he started to that somehow he got connected with Judaism. Someone came or he saw someone Jewish, and then he ended up getting transferred to the same, or he asked to be transferred to the same prison that Shalom Mordechai Rabashkin, the one that famous Hasidic guy that was in prison for not for anything real, but whatever, that owned that big meat plant. So he ended up transferring to that prison, and he ended up learning Torah with him, and then he learned there were other religious people there. He ended up becoming religious, literally in prison, and now he's out. But it's a very interesting story. He's he's totally religious, hope anywhere, even in the darkest places. And when he thought oh my God, he could never go through this again, he was a young guy, and he turned his life around just through that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Really beautiful.
Can you send the name of the guy who was in prison?